the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark again at the Age of Fission radio show. It is November 23rd, 2015. My show is on the air from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. live, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on Monday, since I've been doing this show, I came up with a small format when I first started. And I decided I would do the nuclear alerts on Monday. Wednesdays, I would do an interview by some activist or somebody who can bring us information to help us cope with the living in the age of fission, because that's really what we have to do, is learn how to accept living in this time where we know we're being polluted at a grotesque level, and particularly by the nuclear radioactive nuclides in the air that we just can't escape. Can't see it, can't feel it, can't taste it. It's here. And there's a lot that we can do, but we just haven't learned how, because we have seriously been trained to not do things. And on Friday, I have call-in Fridays where sometimes people call in early in the show and we get into a pretty good conversation. Sometimes it's me just sharing information with you with one or two phone calls. Either way, it's all good with me. I have decided, though, I am super sick, completely sick of listening to the nuclear alerts, going to the nuclear alerts week after week. Listen to them tell us that no danger to human health has occurred by this leak, that leak, the possible contamination. I mean, they are not going to tell us. If there is a nuclear meltdown, folks, anybody listening to this radio show is probably aware. We're on a need-to-know basis, and we don't need to know. And even when people start dropping off like flies, we still don't need to know. I went to a YouTube channel this morning, Weeping Willow 2 for You, and she covers the news, and what she does is she's just a citizen journalist like many of us, takes her little camera and goes to these places the government cites. Up in Alaska, the game and fishery people, they have a running feed of the polar bears and of the salmon run, and there's no salmon. The polar bears are dying. The bears up there, the brown bears up in Alaska, are dying. She did a video feed this morning that I actually posted on my Facebook page. It was shocking. The bears are losing their hair. There's no fish. They're sitting in the water just sort of like tilting. There's no salmon. The salmon are so weak they can't even jump 3 feet. It's seriously, we cannot live in denial anymore, folks. It's time for us to take action, which is why I decided today that I am no longer, I will read the nuclear alerts, but I'm going to read them after I read the public meetings and involvement pages. so that we need people, that we need bodies sitting in these NRC conferences, and we need people telling these guys, shaking them up to wake them up for their humanity. They seriously, seriously underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny that radiation causes harm. As per John Goffman's scientific study, 20-year study of the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he studied the victims for 20 years. That was his general summation. The NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, at that time it was the AEC, the International Atomic Energy Agency out of the UN, and the United States military underreport the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny that radiation causes harm. Look at what is happening in St. Louis, folks. Right in our own country, in the United States of America, we have the first landfill dump site that grotesquely was mishandled. Grotesquely mishandled. It is now a Superfund site, and it has just been grotesquely neglected to the point where it is leaking, and it is less than a quarter of a mile away from catching fire. There's a fire at the Westlake landfill. There are people living within a mile of this nuclear dump site. They need to be immediately remediated and moved. I think the people of that community are calling for the Army Corps of Engineers to come in and help them handle it. And I don't know about you, but after what happened in Katrina, when you say Army Corps of Engineers to handle anything, it makes my skin crawl. So how desperate must the people of St. Louis be? Seriously, folks, how desperate must they be if that is what they're asking for? They want the Army Corps of Engineers. They don't want the EPA. The EPA has grotesquely neglected it. I think it was the 90s. I read a document that said in the 90s, the current company who owns it wrote a letter to the EPA, wanted to immediately, they said time-sensitive immediate remediation needed to happen. The EPA said, don't worry about it. There's grass growing on top of it. It's fine. And they didn't give them permission to clean it. So I have decided that, we're going to change it up, because what we need is action, and we need things to change. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again expecting different results. So let's try something new. On Mondays, I am going to continue to read the public meetings, and as we come back to them, many of them are going to be repetitive, because it'll be the same meetings that will be on here. But I think it's very important. I'm going to continue to do this. First, let me go over this with you, what the meetings are, the levels of the meetings. There are categories 1, 2, and 3 on the meetings. This is on the page that on the NRC website. It says important information for meeting attendees. Beginning on Monday, October 3rd, 2011, this is how long ago they have updated it, all NRC visitors to the White Flint complex will be required to enter through the recently renovated One White Flint North lobby. Well, look, if you go there, you'll have to visit this page yourself. This is kind of my hope, that I'll be able to give you guys some information, and we will start seeing bodies in these hearings, and we will have full rooms, and we will have people participating and asking just, if we just ask common sense questions, we're going to force them to make sound, more rational decisions. Look what Donna Gilmore has done out at San Onofre. She's attended all the meetings. She's done all of her homework. She talks to these people. She gets to know them. They are human beings, and it really does matter. And they are just going along. They're in their little corporate jobs, just doing what they can, So it's important for us to show up and kind of rattle the cage. So there's 3 types of public levels. Level of public participation for each staff meeting. Category 1 is the public is invited to observe these meetings and will have one or more opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portions, but before the meetings are adjourned. Okay, category 2. The public is invited to participate in these meetings by discussing regulatory issues with the NRC at designated points identified on the agenda. Category 3. The public is invited to participate in these meetings by providing comments and asking questions throughout. So I guess you get to ask questions and then designated times. And then the first one is no. Have one or more opportunities to communicate. That's a weird way to put it. These people are creepy, I swear to God. You know, I was raised in a household that was quite violent, and the subversive language among these people is just freaky. Freaks me out. Like, I can't get over how uh, subconsciously terrifying they are. They talk in a very, like this. This is really creepy. We'll have one or more opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portions, but before the meetings are adjourned. What the heck does that mean? For real, dudes. Okay, let's go to our first public meeting. We're at the public meeting schedule. And there is a page on that. It's when you go to public involvement, public meetings, and then you go to public meeting schedules. Let's see. 11:23, there's actually a meeting, excuse me, from 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And if you're in North Bethesda, Maryland, you can make it. This is what? A category level 2 meeting to review the technical. Let me get into the whole thing because I'll open it in a new window. Hold on. This is what it says. Title of the meeting is Notice of Meeting to Discuss Provisions of Steel and Modular Composite Construction in the American Institute of Steel Construction Specification. So they're talking about the level of steel. So what are they saying? Comments. Public agenda. 8 to 8:30 will be the introduction for the placeholders for specifics. Let me see. Are they giving us any information in this agenda? Discussion for topics of the AISC N690 excluding app N9. No, they give us nothing. So let's see if we can come down here and scroll. It's kind of a long document. Nope. They give us nothing, but we do know that they're talking about the technical provisions of steel and modular composite constructions in the American Institute of Steel Construction Specifications. So this is probably talking about, this is one of the issues that has to do with what Donna Gilmore's talking about. Those containers that we store our nuclear waste in are only a half an inch thick. So this is probably talking about the level of that steel, because we know that those containers start leaking after 20 years. So, okay, so then we have another one today from 8:30 a.m. Now, you guys have probably lost this because it's gone. It's already 1 p.m. So what was that one? I'm just going to read it to you. It's kind of new today, so I apologize for not getting through this. But let's take a look at these a little bit more. I'm going to read all of them, even though it's for today. I'm going to, if this continues till 8:30, I'll stop with the today ones and move on, because we want to get people there this next week. So this is the meeting details of the next one, 11:30 to 1 a.m. And this is what happened already, because it actually does not tell us. Public meeting notice with Northwest Medical Isotopes Inc. regarding medical isotope production facility. So that's for the nuclear medicine. That's talking about that on the nuclear medicine. So this one was 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. You could still catch this one. This is a teleconference. The phone number is 301-415-1034, and that's a Category 3. So that's got the biggest one. The public is invited to participate in these meetings by providing comments and asking questions throughout. So because it's a teleconference, I guess you get to listen in, and you can give your 2 cents. Meeting feedback. The purpose of this meeting is to determine deterministic reporting provisions in the Title 10 of the Federal Code Regulations, 10 CFR, Section 50.46C, Draft Final Rule. Wow. And then they have all these related documents, and it's a bunch of things. I'm not going to spend time on it because this is a meeting that is today. If you're interested in this teleconference, please do go to the NRC website because it's, let's see, 8:39. It's about a half an hour away, and you could call in on this teleconference, 301-415-1034, and that's 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and it is on the NRC website, www.nrc.gov. Then there's one for tomorrow. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission staff and Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company Limited will discuss proprietary and non-proprietary topics of the Advanced Power Reactor 1400 related to probable risk assessment. They call that PRA, probable risk assessment, and severe accident evaluation, and reliability assurance program, the RAP, the RAP. Don't you just love this? Is a category 1. It's also a teleconference. There are 2 phone numbers. Teleconference T6C01. I wonder what these codes are. I guess that's the code when you call in these phone numbers. James Steckel. So I suppose if anybody really decided to take up the mantle and start phone calling and listening into these teleconferences, you'd have to, please do give us a call on Fridays and let us know how these processes work. Because this is kind of interesting that they have teleconferences, although it's a level 1, which means you're on a need-to-know basis and you don't really need to know. It's one of those things where you don't get to participate very well. Portions of the meeting may include discussion of proprietary topics and will be closed to the public. Exactly, that's just what I was saying. That's these category 1s. In the non-proprietary portions of the meeting, the members of the public will have 1 or more opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portion of the meeting. Interested members of the public can request to participate in a non-proprietary meeting portions via toll-free teleconference. For details, please contact the NRC meeting by Monday, November 23rd, 2015. And that is today, folks. So if you wanted to get on this to find out what these people are up to, might be a good thing. That's what I think. 11:24. Man, look at this. Let me scroll down because this is actually, I'm looking at the full length of this. Wow, so it is scheduled all the way out to 3/23/2016. So I am going to get a little faster on this one so we can get through these a little bit. Or maybe next week I'll just keep doing this because I see that we're at 8:18. Yeah. Well, I wonder what that one's up. These category 1 meetings, they kind of interest me because they, it makes you wonder what they're not telling us. So here we have one that is 11:24. Again, another category 1 meeting that is called. The purpose is to discuss the request for supplemental information for model number HISTARABT1 package. What the heck does that mean? Related documents. Notice of the meeting of the Holtec Inc. to discuss the request for supplemental information. Holtec Inc. You know who Holtec is? Holtec is the people that make those canisters that Donna Gilmore that says are completely inadequate. So that's interesting. This is Holtec, Royston Naguaya, that's his name, et al. So that's his name. This is a category 1 meeting. The public is invited to observe this meeting and will have 1 or more opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portion, but before the meeting is adjourned. And I'm going to scroll through and sort of see what I can see. So let's see, meeting notice to discuss the supplemental information. Are they going to give us any of the issues about what the issues that's going to be discussed? No. But we do know that Holtec is the company that makes those inadequate canisters for the nuclear waste that actually, because of Donna Gilmore's activism, we know about it. Prior to that, it wasn't even an issue. These people had not even really discussed issues. And so this is pretty interesting, folks. Let's see. Okay, so that is an interesting one. So that is I'm going to repeat that, 11/24/2015. That's tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. That's a category 1. And the address is NRC 1 Flint North 11555 Rockville Park, 16B04. That's the room in Rockville, Maryland. If you want to contact anybody about this, you can call Pierre Saverot, Saverot. And the phone number is 301-415-7505. I'm going to give out these phone numbers to the NRC employees who are managing these meetings because I think it's important for us to know the names of the people working inside the NRC who are making these decisions and agreeing just to be lazy, like agreeing for how anybody at the NRC can agree that these half-inch thick Holtec containers are reasonable is out of their minds. And I'm just going to say that straight up. I think they're completely off their rocker. Anybody who thinks that you can put nuclear waste into a half an inch thick container and say it's going to last for 100 years and it starts leaking in 20 years, in my view, that's the definition of complete insanity. There is another meeting then tomorrow. These guys are busy, meeting. Oh, it's so hard to go to meeting day after day. It must be rough. Screwing the public over as often as you can. Okay. There's another meeting. So what does this say? Notice a forthcoming public teleconference to discuss AP 1000 Design Center combined license reviews issues. Oh, that sounds ominous. License reviews issues. This is how it's going to be a teleconference. Notice a forthcoming public teleconference to discuss AP 1000 Design Center combined license issues from 2 to 4 p.m. Now, this is Eastern Standard Time, folks. You have to remember that. They are not giving us any of the issues that they're going to be discussing. Let me see. Let me see if I can open up another link. They give us a link, but I don't think it'll open. So, no. Wow. Licensing, relevant licensing and technical issues. Wow. The purpose of this teleconference is for the NRC staff and the combined license applicants of the AP 1000 Design Center to discuss, ask questions, or note concerns regarding relevant licensing and technical issues. This is a Category 2 level, folks, so there are some things that you can do. You will be able to discuss at various times throughout the meeting what you can do. So let's see. And then tomorrow again from 10 a.m. No, on 11/25. I beg your pardon. And the last one was on tomorrow, 11/24. So the next day they have another full deck of meetings. They have 11/25. From 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is a Category 1. You know what? I'm brand new to this, but I can just tell you can look at this. The Category 1s are where they're actually considering really serious things, and they don't really want the public information. They really have no interest in allowing us to comment from the get. They're going to make their decisions, and then we get to pipe in and make them uncomfortable. The purpose of this meeting tomorrow on November 25th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. is the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission staff and Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company Ltd, KHNP, that's Korea Hydro Nuclear Power. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power will discuss proprietary and non-proprietary topics of the Advanced Power Reactor 1400 related to reactor systems, transient and accident analyses in APR 1400 Design Control Document Tier 2, Chapter 15, and related application sections. Wow. Could they talk actually even in a more convoluted way? I wonder what these design control documents are, Tier 2. This is a Category 1 where we don't get to really discuss. Portions of the meeting may include discussions of proprietary topics and will be closed to the public. In non-proprietary portions, the public will have one or more opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portion. So you can say what you want, but you know what? They're going to discuss what they want themselves. It's up to them. It's them. They get to tell us what to do because they're the nuclear priesthood, these rats. So let's talk about that. Last meeting, 11:25, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's a teleconference, and the code on there is T7C01. The phone numbers for this is James Steckel, 301-415-1026, or Bruce Olson, 301-415-3731. And this is on public meeting schedule, folks, so you can come here and check out these phone numbers if I'm reading them too quickly. So on December 1st, let's take a look at the calendar. When does December 1st happen? That's next Tuesday. We are going to have meeting info. Let's see. ASRC, Reliability and Probability Risk Assessment Subcommittee meeting. This participation is open. Well, they didn't tell us what open meant. So let's see what they're going to tell us about the info meeting. Because there was no category for us telling us what open was. Oh my gosh. I clicked on more meeting info, and Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards, meeting schedules and related documents. It has things scheduled up to 2016, folks. Wow. Okay. So let's see if we can open up a link to the new page on this one. Come on, Mr. Computer. I think I have 10 or 12 links open now. Okay. To discuss potential societal safety goals. These people just make me so infuriated with the way could they really say that? Societal safety goals. Shouldn't we all have societal safety goals? Who the heck are these people? I'm going to open up this link. It gives us the schedule. It's asking us to look at these links for the dates. So what does this mean? Oh my gosh. That is just infuriating. So here we're at December 4th. They have these meetings scheduled, folks, for the whole year 2015. ACRS full committee meetings, and these are open to the public, and people can come and just sit in. It doesn't look like you're allowed to comment, but you can sit in. This is February 5th, March 6th, April. Every single month they have these. FRN agenda. Let's see what that says. Open in a new link. I wonder if it's going to be the same let's don't talk about it meeting. Let's see. The committee will discuss potential topics for its anticipated March 2016 meeting with the Commission. Remarks by the subcommittee chairman, briefings by and discussions with representatives of the NRC staff regarding 10 CFR 50.46C rulemaking activities. Briefing and discussion by the representatives of the NRC staff and Duke Energy regarding draft safety and evaluation report associated with the COLA for William States Lee 3 Nuclear Station 102. So I guess Duke Energy owns that nuclear station too. Is that the deal? The Koch brothers just run everything? For God's sakes. December 4th conference, 8:30 to 10 a.m. Future ACRS activities report with the Planning and Procedure Subcommittee. Discussions of the recommendations of the Planning and Procedure Subcommittee, proposals for the consideration of the full committee, blah, blah, blah. But this is kind of interesting, so let's figure out what this is. Regarding rulemaking activities. Let's put a little Google thing in there and see if we can find this. 10 CFR NRC 10 CFR 50.46 rulemaking activities. Because this is where they get you. They don't actually tell you what it is that they want, but they bury it in these acronyms. It's unconscionable, but they do. See if I can hit the Googles and see what this says. Because these things are just so outrageous, you guys. You know, this morning before the show came on, I was listening to, I don't know, some alternative news station. I don't really listen to mainstream. And they were talking about this whole drum to war. Like, we've had these pronouncements. Even Tom Brokaw yesterday, I couldn't believe it. It was just hilarious. The guy's actually, like, I couldn't believe it. I wonder if he's even dead. I wondered to myself if he's actually just a clone. But the thing that really blew me away, he sits there on Meet the Press and makes a pronouncement to everybody that yes, indeed, we are at war now with ISIS. We are at war. That's what it is, and we need to accept it. Like, really? No, we don't. I mean, you know, we might be at war with the industrial military complex. I mean, they are really they are attacking everybody. We are under siege with from on every window, including this one. What do you think the nuclear industry is about, folks? The nuclear industry is not about providing safe, clean fuel to anybody. It's not safe and it's not clean. Oh, look at this preliminary draft. Wow. Public availability of this draft document is intended to inform stakeholders of the current status of the NRC staff's preliminary draft final rule package and associated documents for Section 50.46C of Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations 10 CFR. That's what that is, Code of Federal Regulations. The preliminary draft documents are in support of an October 22nd, 2015 Category 3 public meeting and a November 2nd, 2015 Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards. ACRS, ACRS, Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards. So when you guys see that, ACRS, that's a word we see in taxes. That's an acronym for a form of depreciation. Let's just mess everybody up with all these acronyms. Baffle them with bullshit. That's what their attitude is. This draft document has not been subject to all levels of NRC management review, which means it might actually give us some information. Accordingly, it is incomplete and may be in error in one or more aspects. Might be. Okay. In particular, the preliminary draft language in paragraph E, alternate risk-informed approach for addressing the effects of debris on long-term core cooling is under current staff discussion with respect to the manner in which the risk-informed alternative may be used in the initial NRC approval for the reactor designs. So listen to what this says, folks, and modification for both nuclear reactor designs and currently operating nuclear power reactors. My brain is flitting all over the place. It's like bing, bing, bing. Subject, this is the preliminary draft, final draft rulemaking, emergency core cooling system performance during loss of coolant accidents. This is an important meeting, folks. For goodness sakes. And if nobody shows up, guess who will show up? The Koch brothers. That's going to be their, this is their gig, man. Wow. I'm kind of blown away by this, to be honest. I'm trying to find the page that has the meetings on it. I know I didn't close it, so hold on. Wow, we can close that window. We can close that window. This is so amazing, you guys. Like the way these people, okay, let's read this, the summary. I'll just read you the summary. The staff has prepared a final rule that replaces the current regulations for ECCS found in 10 CFR Section 50.46 by establishing performance-based requirements. The final rule incorporates recent research findings that identified previously unknown cladding embrittlement mechanisms and expanded the NRC's knowledge of previously identified mechanisms. The final rule also expands applicability of the ECCS acceptance criteria to all light water reactors. So this expands it. Wow. Emergency core cooling systems. That's what ECCS means. Additionally, this final rule requires licensee to evaluate the thermal effect of crud and oxide layers that may have developed on the fuel cladding during normal operation. This is so unconscionable, the way they run this industry. Preliminary draft, the commissioners. Finally, the draft final rule provides a provision that allows licensee to use a risk-informed alternative to address effects of debris in the long term. The NRC research program identified that zirconium-based fuel cladding materials may be subject to embrittlement at a lower combination of temperature and level of oxygen absorption than currently allowed under the current regulations due to absorption of hydrogen during normal operation. Therefore, under the current regulations, post-quench ductility, which is necessary to ensure coolable core geometry, and there's a number one, there must be something else to say about it, is not assured following a postulated loss of coolant accident. That's called LOCA, L-O-C-A. Loss of coolant accident, LOCA. LOCA in Spanish means crazy, you guys. The portion of the final rule addressing post-quench deductibility is necessary to ensure adequate protection of the public health and safety. Really? As if they even care. The final rule effectively maintains the level of protection, i.e., reasonable assurance of adequate protection, that the NRC thought was achieved throughout the entire term of the licensed operation by the current regulations, but new research shows it is not necessarily the case. Oh, this is sweet. This is them being conscientious. This is a very long document, so I'm just going to scroll through, see if there's anything in here that hits me in the face. Oh my gosh. You know what, you guys? This is exactly why we need people at these meetings. So if anybody wants to come here, this is going to be an important meeting for people to actually pay attention to. So, hopefully we can get people to come to these meetings because it's actually super important. I mean, we do need, this is how they've gotten away with it for so long. I mean, they really have just used us and abused us, but mostly because we've allowed it. Nobody's actually shown up and paid attention. Nobody's, like me, I never really even thought about it before a long time, before 2012. I thought the NRC was helping us. I thought they were looking after us. I really believed in my heart of hearts that the nuclear industry had resolved their issues and that it was relatively easy for us, that we were living in a very safe environment. So there's a meeting again on 12/1/2015 from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. This meeting will be between Exelon Generation Company, LLC, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss chemical effects, head loss tests, and simplified informed risk closure plans for the Calvert Clips Nuclear Power Plants Unit 1 and 2. Slides for the meeting will be found at the agency-wide Document Access and Management System of Ascension. This is a Category 1. It is a teleconference. And you can get in touch with Alex Chereskin, Chereskin. The phone number is 301-415-2549. So I see that it's 20 minutes till, folks, and we are into December 1st, which is next Tuesday. So that takes us through this week's meetings, and I am going to stop here. You can go to the NRC website. In the back of my head, I'm wondering, should I tell you about meetings 2 weeks in advance? But I think if any of you listening to this are actually really going to take some action, I'm going to continue to read this to prompt people to take some action, especially if you live anywhere near any of these meetings. I mean, the teleconferences, for sure, some people can join in on the teleconferences. The way to find this is you go to Public Meetings and Involvement on the NRC website, www.nrc.gov, and you go to Public Meetings and Involvement, and it's you can go to conferences and symposium. about commission schedule, adjudicated hearings, public meeting schedules. So you can go to the public meeting schedules and hear about that. I'm going to move on a little bit. It's 8:40. I don't know. I haven't even looked at the NRC alerts. I decided this morning that I was not going to even deal with that I was just going to look at this at these meetings, because we really do need people to show up. But let me see if I can plug this into alerts and see if there's anything that should actually be freaking us out, you know. So, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a loss for words. I want to talk to you a little bit about, before I do these, I want to have a little conversation about Dana Durnford, who is the nuclear proctologist. Libby Halevi made an allusion to him. She did not call him out by name. She said she basically took the media's point of view on this, that he had been threatening people and threatening to kill Jay Cullen and inciting violence. Let me tell you what, I actually participated in many of Dana Durnford's live feedcasts on the YouTubes. Dana has a YouTube page called Beautiful Girl by Dana, and he had a live feed. And in which, you know, many of you already know Kevin Blanche, because Kevin has the Post Ignorance Project radio show here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And he makes the same kind of outrageous, you know, what I call tough guys attitude. You know, calls people names, tells them he's going to beat them up, uses rough language, tells them that they ought to be dead. Well, that's what Dana did. And so that got twisted in Canada. Evidently, it is against the law. You can't call people names. You can't say things like, you know, people ought to beat you up. You ought to be strung up by a tree for lying to the public. That's illegal in Canada. So, you know, in America, I think it's considered hyperbole still. It might not be. You know, this is the issue. We are now in an age where we need to watch our language. Unfortunately, Dana fell victim to the tough guy syndrome, regularly got engaged in like hyperbole, you know, like hyperbole of just like calling people, telling them he's going to string them out and you deserve to be dead. I mean, you've heard Kevin, you've heard Dana. If you've listened to either of these gentlemen, they're harmless, frankly. And this is typical of the tough guy syndrome. The Tough Guys is a documentary that I refer to all the time. It's Tough Guys, Guise. And you can find, I think it's a pirated copy, frankly, on YouTube. But it is a really great documentary that talks about how the heck did we get to this point where we have extreme violence, and it is the men perpetrating the violence. Why do we have this in our culture? The guy talks about it. It is part of social engineering. It's to train guys that if you talk like this, that's what it means to be a man. You're exercising your intellectual muscle by threatening people, making violent things. And so what has happened with Dana is he got arrested, and he's facing some very serious charges. And Libby Halevi said, you know, don't give this guy any of your money. He's not an anti-nuke activist. Well, yes, he is an anti-nuke activist, and he does need financial support to help pay for his legal fund. I don't know. I mean, I contributed a little bit of money, but, you know, it's hard. As citizens, it's hard for us to contribute to people's legal fund because we have to live our lives in an ever increasingly more expensive world. That's off the point, though. The point is really, I really wanted to address this idea of people saying who's an activist, who's not an activist. You know, I often caught a lot of negative conversations during the almost 2 years that I supported the Post Ignorance Project. People who didn't like Kevin thought it was a waste of my time, my energy, my money. And I'm like, you have no right to tell other people what their activism is. And Dana Durnford is an anti-nuke activist. He did go over the edge. He should not have exercised his tough guy's muscle. That's what I call it, the tough guy's muscle. That does not mean he's not an activist. And frankly, I think this is where we get into this with people doing the name calling, because here's Libby, who's a journalist professional. She's trained journalistically, kind of mouthing the media without looking at all the videos, without watching all the evidence, She just like said, "Oh yeah, Dana Durnford's threatening these scientists, these nuclear scientists. He shouldn't have done that. So he's not an anti-nuke activist." Well, that's actually not the truth. And I wanted to use a little bit of my airtime that I have to speak about that because, like I said this morning, I was listening to this radio program. They were talking about how the status quo, the establishment, is getting very uncomfortable at the alternative news media. Here I am on a Monday morning reading to people and the public about nuclear alerts, encouraging people to go to these meetings at the NRC. Let me tell you what, the people in power are very comfortable with us ignoring everything and not understanding, how the government functions. All these meetings, like just this morning, these meetings that we had. So anyways, it's very important. I see that I'm 8:45 and I want to get through this. There's conferences and symposium that I think that are very important. I want to bring this up. But you know what? There's none of them. 2016. The next one is in 2016. So I think it's very important for us to not pass judgment on each other. That's the point of this. It's like, it is very, whether you agree with someone or not, we need to reserve our judgment and allow people their own activism, their own voice in whatever manner, because it's like Carl Grossman said, it is going to take all kinds. It's going to take all of us. We have been asleep. We're like Rip Van Winkle, right? That guy who slept for 40 years and woke up and then all of a sudden everything's changed, or 100 years. I don't remember the story, but Rip Van Winkle went to sleep and woke up like 100 years later and everything had changed. That's kind of where we've been. Since World War II, we just, we drank the pablum. We took whatever they said and said, oh yeah, the NRC, these government agencies are protecting us, and now we live in a toxic world. We have chemtrails above us that we can't stop. We have nuclear power reactors that are leaking, and an agency that is completely callous to the fact of the harm of what nuclear radiation does to people. It's very, very sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but the only way to make it not sad is for us to get actively engaged. And I am going to come on Mondays and read these public involvement meetings. Next week I'll read to you the public involvement meetings for the following week so that you can make plans to get there. I do encourage people to go to the NRC website to talk to read about all this stuff. I mean, frankly, they're not hiding much. They're hiding the facts of the harm of radiation, but they have these open meetings. And as we've seen the effectiveness of Donna Gilmore, Mimi Gurman, the people who are actually moving, what matters in this industry of the nuclear cartel, and I venture to say with every regulatory agency that is screwing us over. We need bodies to show up, to participate, because if the only people that are showing up are Exelon and Koch brother representatives, those are going to be the people that the NRC and all these government agencies pay attention to. It's not just enough for us to piss and moan and post things onto Facebook and say, isn't this outrageous that they're doing it? We have to show up at these public meetings. Look what happened at Bayou Corn, folks. For those of you who are not completely aware, Bayou Corn is in Louisiana, and it started out with a little tiny sinkhole. In the middle of the bayou, it was burbling. Gas was escaping. And it started at 300 square meters or 300 square feet. It is now 11 and a half, I think, something like that, 11 miles in circumference. I think that's even understating it. It's grown. The whole entire little town of Bayou Corn was required to be evacuated. And the public meetings, this was a community that was threatened. So every stakeholder, every person who lived in that community was at all these meetings. And it forced Texas Brine to do the right thing in terms of making sure it didn't blow up. The last time this happened down in the bayou, the corporation that owned these sinkholes, basically what happened was there's a salt dome that collapsed in on itself. And in those salt domes down in southern Louisiana, they're filling them up. That's where our gas reserves are. They put nuclear waste in there. They put gas. They put nuclear waste. They put different chemicals. So the last time this happened was in the late 60s. One of them, they just ignored it and it blew up and it stayed on fire for 15 years. So these people in Louisiana remembered that and they did not want that to happen to Bayou Corn. And they showed up every week. And it forced Texas Brine to handle this. And I don't know if they can handle it. These these corporations are so far over their head. They thought of these brilliant ideas and made no plans for disaster, just like the NRC. The NRC has no plans for disaster, none. In fact, Barbara Boxer talked about this at a meeting that was held in October. The NRC approved San Onofre nuclear power plant to not be forced to have an emergency plan in the event of an earthquake or some catastrophe with their spent fuel pools that are sitting outside of the reactor building exposed to the elements. If something happens, there is no emergency plan. You're on your own if you live in Southern California and there's a problem at San Onofre. So it is vital that all of us get active. And this is why the media, the status quo, they're all nervous. That's what this guy was saying. We can anticipate that the government, the long arm of the law, is going to be coming down on people that's in the alternative media in any way. All these social media groups, they are anticipating that more and more of us are going to be under scrutiny, which is why it's extremely important that we make sure at the very minimum, if we're going to get worked up and start getting all excited and display our emotions and display our anger, that we do not make accusations personally at any single individual. We can call them liars, we can call them traitors, because that's what they are. They're murderers, in my view. What they've done to the people around this nation, the NRC, the gross negligence, the harm, the autism, the cancer, the genetic mutations that have happened, the endocrine problems, the diabetes. I mean, it's off the charts. The quality of life in America has dramatically reduced in our country because of the nuclear industry, because of the technologists, because of the social engineering that trained us to just sit down, shut up, and, let's go watch some television. I mean, we're at a critical point where we really do need to save ourselves, folks. And I'm not one for saying we need to throw out the baby with the bathwater and we need to just shit can the whole government. I think when we consider that less than 18%, I've had so many people say, Lonnie, you keep talking about voting. You know what? Technically speaking, 18% of the population in this country actually votes. 18% of the eligible voters actually vote. And that's just voting. That's not even staying politically actively engaged. I think the number is way less than 5%. So this is really, the reason we don't have a democracy is because we're not acting democratically. We're not participating. And by participating, I mean vote, stay actively engaged, and show up to these public meetings. If you live on the East Coast, most of them are on the East Coast, it appears to me. So these are things that really need to be discussed. We do have some public comments open now. I see I have about 10 minutes left. We do have documents for public comments open until December 2nd, December 4th. Variable annual fee structure for small modular reactors. That one's closing on December 4th. Approved spent fuel storage caps. Now this is one where we might actually make some difference. This closes on 12/18/2015. And I think next Monday I'm going to spend some time reading about that because we do have some time. Let's talk about this one. The variable annual fee for small modular reactors. So this means that they are moving ahead with those small modular reactors, no matter what, folks. They're figuring out what they can charge us. Wow. The advance notice of rulemaking, okay, seeking comments from the public on a possible variable fee for Part 171 annual fees for power reactors based on licensed power limits. That's bizarre. It says it ended in 2009. Variable fee structure for small power reactors. So they're gonna build these small little modular reactors. That is so outrageous. The document is too large for me to read comfortably, you guys. But let's open up this one, the one that's closed on the list of approved spent fuel storage casks. Magna Store Cast System, Revision 1 to Amendments 10 through 3. So maybe this is one where Donna Gilmore was able to get through to this. This is what I mean. It does matter. So let's see what the list is. This closes on, what's the date? December 19th. So I'm not going to read it. I don't think we have enough time. I'm not going to get into it. December 18th, it closes. I will come back to it. But I am encouraging everyone to take some action and actually get more actively engaged. And I'm going to talk about why I always focus on the nuclear stuff. I've not really been an activist in my life. I've really just raised 2 kids on my own, started my own business, been very busy with that. The more I discover about the problem with nuclear, the more I realize it is the elephant in the room. You don't see it, you don't taste it, you can't feel it. And we are having symptoms in mass levels all throughout our country. When we look at one of the first things that nuclear contamination does is cause diabetes. And we look at the diabetes epidemic in our country, it's not a hard correlation to have. One of the things it does is it causes genetic mutations and leukemias. For every 2 rads of radiation in the air per John Goffman, you get 32,000 cancers, 225,000 genetic birth defects. We have birth defects. I mean, they're making big money off of this, folks, and this is why I keep coming back to it. To me, it's like the elephant in the room. We have basically given up our power to what they consider themselves the nuclear priesthood. Dr. Alvin Weinberg of the IAE, I guess it was the AEC, Atomic Energy Commission. He was one of the first commissioners. He wrote this big, long thing, and in it he said that we have now created a nuclear priesthood. Well, I'll tell you what, this priesthood is failing society. They have definitely failed to keep our planet safe. Look at those bears on Weeping Willow 2 for Newsfeed this morning. The bears are starving. They are losing their hair. There's bears sitting up in Alaska with no fur on 2/3 of their body. The bears are just sitting on the banks, breathing heavily, starving to death because there's no salmon in the water. And it's not an accident. It said they started seeing it starting 4 years ago. Really? And we are not even talking about Fukushima. This is why I talk about the nuclear issue all the time. In my view, it is the #1 issue. We're living in the age of fission, folks. It's not scaremongering. I'm encouraging people to put their courage feet on, take some action. Whatever action that you feel you can do, please do take it. It takes all kinds. And so I really appreciate you listening. Next Monday, I'll be reading more of these meetings open to the public. We really need to put the pressure on the NRC to start making more sound decisions. Put your courage